How on earth did I manage to make this e-commerce brand $217,000 per month, right? This is an e-commerce brand case study. And what I wanted to go through here is how brand loyalty trumps all, right? It trumps every single marketing system you have, every single advertising strategy you have, every single ad testing, product testing strategy that you have in your business, right? And how was it able to allow me to build this e-commerce brand to multiple six figures in revenue per month, right, through building a loyal audience, right, and a loyal customer base. Now, there's a lot to go through in this video. There's a lot of stuff which I want to share with you guys, so make sure you stick around for this entire thing. But if you want to get access to more training and more free stuff, there's a free course linked down below or up here. Go ahead. And I'm also doing a free live training where I go into this for a lot more detail. So first of all, right, the importance of brand loyalty. The idea here is we can reduce our marketing costs. If we have customers, right, that buy from our store, and we can make sure that they're going to come back and continue buying from our store, we're going to have to spend a lot less to actually make sales, right? Not necessarily to acquire a customer, but to make sales, right? We're also going to get increased lifetime value because people are going to come back and keep on buying, okay? So what do I mean by this? Well, basically, right, when most people start an e-commerce store, there are a few things that they typically do. For example, right, one of the first things that they really focus on is retargeting. Okay, now you're probably doing retargeting on your store, right? And this typically involves retargeting page views or even website visitors, sometimes even add to cart, okay? And the idea is that if you retarget these people, they're going to come back to your store and they're going to spend money on their store, right? These are people who have seen your store before, your brand before, and they're going to come back and buy. The other group and category of people, which I like to call, you can call it what you want, but it's remarketing, okay? In other words, we're going to remarket to people who have already bought. So these are purchasers, right? These are people who have already spent money on our store, right? And the theory being here that if we have given them a good enough service, the chances of getting somebody who's already bought from our store and has already gone over that risk factor to purchase, they will probably come back and buy again, right? So if we look at this like a graph, it's kind of like, I don't know if you guys have done chemistry or anything like that, but anyway, there's a point here, right, where you've got a horizontal line, which I'm going to draw it like this, right? Horizontal line, and I like to call this the activation energy, okay? The activation energy, or the risk level, the risk tolerance that somebody is willing to go through before they are willing to actually purchase a product from your brand, right? So for somebody, most people sort of average sort of under that risk level. They sort of average around here. In every occasion where somebody purchases, they manage to push above that activation energy, that risk threshold. And at this point, right, that means they are willing to purchase your product, right? If they come above here, they're willing to purchase your product, right? But now they remain above that activation energy. Those people are sitting above that activation energy, right? And there's typically a percentage of people that will be above that activation energy, and that is usually your conversion. I can't write today. Rate. My handwriting is crap today. But this is your conversion rate. The point is, right, the higher your conversion rate, the lower the activation energy. Or in other words, if you can lower the activation energy, the more conversions you are going to make. But also, right, once somebody's made a purchase, they have already gone over that activation energy. They already know that there is a very low risk. Okay, low risk buyers, because they've already received the products, right? Any objections that they have before are now dispelled. So in other words, right, we start to run our brands, sort of where we start, right? Reduced acquisition costs happen because we increase brand loyalty, and we then, as a result, increase lifetime value, okay? That is basically sort of the basic flow that we're trying to go through here. But to do this, we need to understand our customers, and we need to actually make sure that when somebody buys from our store, they're going to keep coming back and buying. And I'm going to get into that in just a minute. But first of all, how do we actually get people to buy right off the bat, okay? Because we're trying to build a brand here that does $200,000 per month. If we're not making sales, or we're not making many sales, we've got some stuff that we need to fix first, and that is conversion rates. So to increase your conversion rates, there are a few main things that you really need to focus on. I like to call these basically limiting beliefs, right? So you're called limiting beliefs. In other words, these are the things that stop people from purchasing from your brand, right? And they can be literally anything. They can be like they've been burned before. For example, right, if they've bought a product from somebody else's brand and that product either never arrived or it was broken or it didn't work, and I always use the example of acne here, right? Acne is a very difficult problem to solve, and most of the time that people sell a product that solves acne, it doesn't actually solve the problem, right? So people aren't going to buy from you if you sell an acne product because they've been burnt before, right? It could be that your brand looks untrustworthy, right? In other words, trustworthy. Right, so they see your brand, right, and they don't believe that when they order the product, it's going to arrive on time. And there's like a whole load of other limiting beliefs, right? These are things that stop people from purchasing. Now, you can increase your conversion rates by literally listing out these limiting beliefs and then targeting every single one of these in a specific way, right? So, in the example of untrustworthy, this would be inputting things like 5-star reviews, right? So, for example, right, if we have, I'll see if I can do a star. There we go. Input 5-star reviews onto our website. We are then going to increase the number of people that purchase from our brand, right? And that's just like a very basic example, right? So here's basically what a customer journey looks like, okay? Somebody's working their job and then they're going to go shopping around and they find your brand, right? We're assuming at this point they are already in the market for the product that you are selling, okay? So whether you're marketing on, TikTok, if you're doing organic, or if you're doing, Facebook ads, whatever it is, somebody is going to find your brand and then they're going to have to go through a thinking period. Now, this thinking period results in 3 options: a nah, I'm not going to buy, a maybe, and also I'm going to buy. There's a lot more complex stuff that happens here. Basically, our goal as a business should be to reduce this thinking period, right? If we can make the time before somebody to make a decision significantly quicker, right, we're going to make more money in a shorter period of time, okay? In other words, right, if we just look at the amount of time it takes for somebody to make a decision for purchasing from our store, I'll actually use a different color, let's use pink, right? Trying to look at the time it takes for somebody to make a decision to purchase from our store, the more work that we do on our landing pages, the more time that we spend doing market research and trying to get a customer to purchase, right? The less time over, eventually, right, and this is like the longevity of your brand, it will take for somebody to purchase a product, right? It's not going to asymptote to 0, but you're kind of going to get a point like this, right? When you first start out in your business, it's going to be very, very low conversion rates, a very, very long, so this is like over time of actually building a brand, right? Not necessarily the time it takes for somebody to purchase a product, right? But the point is, we want to put a load of work into reducing the amount of time it takes for somebody to think. And the reason we do that is because when somebody is thinking, most of the time they end up leaving our store, right? And if they leave our store, that basically means the only way they're going to make a decision, right, is by literally just thinking about it, right? They haven't got any extra information that's going to make them make a decision and purchase, okay? So typically what happens is 85% of people who come to your store do not buy, right? They're like, no, not going to bother, okay? 13% are like, maybe, I'm thinking about it, maybe I'll come back. And you can typically capture these people through retargeting, right? This is like the retargeting pocket of audience, and then like 2% of them will buy, okay? But obviously, that's not enough to actually make sure that somebody's going to come back that's not enough to make sure that you're going to be able to scale to $200,000 per month. So what I did when I worked with this brand was I was like, right, you have got a lot of customers coming through, okay? Because they're able to scale. They were sort of at this point sitting at about a 10 to 15% profit margin, okay, which isn't huge, but when you're doing $100,000 a month, that's pretty good, okay? Now, the problem with that is there's a lot of people that are coming through and buying a product and then literally just going out the door and being ignored. And what I was saying was, I'll tell you what, right? They have already completed that thinking period. They have already decided that they're going to buy. We can increase these numbers, decrease this number and increase this number a little bit, but maybe we're going to be able to get it to like 3%. We're not going to be able to increase it a huge amount. But I thought to myself, right, what if we can take, let's say this is 10,000 customers, okay? What if we could take 10,000 customers and we could convince them to come back, and maybe we could get like 20% of them to come back and spend more money on our store. And we say, for example, they're going to spend like $50 on our store. That means we're going to get in roughly, what's that? 10% of 10,000, 1,000. We're going to get like 2,000 new purchases coming back to our store, right? 2,000 new purchases times that by $50. That is a nice big number. What is that? So that's an additional $100,000. I probably could have done that in my head, right? But that's an additional $100,000 for the brand, right? So that is just from getting customers to come back and purchase, right? Alternatively, if you work this one back and you say, well, we're going to increase the conversion rate, we're going to spend our time working on paid ads, we're going to spend our time trying to test out new ad angles and increase our ROAS a little bit and all of that fun stuff, we're going to increase our conversion rate from 2% to a 3%, right? So actually, let's make these numbers easier, right? Let's say this here is actually a 1% to get 10,000 purchases, right? So if we make it 2%, we're going to double the amount of purchases that we're going to get. So we're going to get 20,000, right? And then over time, whatever, that will probably bring in, close to like $200,000 in revenue, okay? We'll say 200K in revenue, which on the face of it looks bigger than this number here. But don't forget, this here is basically excluding our product costs. This is basically, let's say, about 80% profit, okay? Which means we have achieved from this $80,000 in profit, okay? So $80,000 in profit just because we've already purchased, we've already got these customers. These customers have already come through our brand. We just need to give them a good enough experience to get them to come back and buy, right? So $100,000 in revenue is $80,000 in profit, right? Call it $70,000, $60,000, whatever your profit margins are, right? Whereas in this case, the people that are coming through, we are getting them a... What did I say it was? 10%? I think we did like 10, 15% profit margins. Yeah, so 10, 15% profit margins, which means out of this, although we are generating more revenue, the actual profit that we are generating for this brand from literally just increasing conversion rates is only going to be about $20,000. Okay, 10%, $20,000 in profit. So actually, by spending more of our time just basically getting customers to come back and purchase again, we are making more profit from the brand, okay? We have gone from making, let's say, $200,000 a month is what we would be getting, or sorry, $100,000 a month from before, to actually $180,000 in, sorry, $200,000 with $80,000 in additional profit. Or we could spend our time increasing conversion rates and only increase our profits by $20,000, right? So that's basically the principle of understanding your customers and increasing your lifetime value and brand loyalty, right? So how do we actually do this, right? How is this actually going to help, right? Here's the problem. Paid ads are becoming significantly more expensive, okay? So if we want to build a long-term business, we have to start thinking about the customer, thinking outside the box. We cannot be relying on this column here. We cannot just be saying we need to get a purchase ROAS, right, of 500, whatever bloody ROAS you want to get, right? Typically, the average ROAS of a brand, when they're like it's at low budget, low scale, will be like a 3x ROAS if you're doing things properly. Problem is, like, as you start to scale, this ROAS will drop, okay? I can explain, tell you what, I'll explain this, right? The easiest way to imagine this is you have a target, okay? Let me just pause this. So this is our target that we've got, okay? And what happens is, right, this is sort of like the low budget scale. So when we're sitting at roughly, this is like $100 maybe per day. $100 per day, we're able to get those sorts of levels, okay? So $100 per day, we get the most targeted customers, the most targeted audience. But then we start to scale up our ad spend. Maybe right now we're spending $500 to $1,000. Okay, $1,000 per day, we start to get a wider audience. Facebook goes into a wider audience, which is a less qualified customer, which means we're getting less ROAS, right? So this would probably be like a 2.5 ROAS, okay? Just for context, this would be a 3 ROAS, okay? And then the further out we go, and we're spending like, $10,000 per day at this point, right? This is going to be closer to a 2 ROAS, okay? Maybe even less than or equal to 2, okay? So you need to make sure that when you're at this level here, you're still making profit, okay? Because you're not making as much profit here. And here's the really interesting thing, right? The more that you spend on ads, the less that your profit will be in terms of your profit margins, right? So it's like an inverse. So the spend, right? Spend on your ads is inversely proportional to the amount of profit, okay? Margin, okay? In other words, right, the more that you spend on ads, the higher your profit margins are, the less you have to spend on ads, right? The more that you spend on ads, the lower your profit margin is, okay? And this is basically just a fact of life when you're running in e-commerce, okay? And this is literally just on the front end of your business. So you need to make sure that when you increase your spend, right, an inverse relationship means if I increase this side will then decrease, okay, down here. So if I increase my spend, as my profit margin decreases, right, in other words, this is like an asymptotic thing, it looks like that, right? So as I increase my spend, my profit is decreasing. This will be profit on this side, okay? And this would be spend. So as I increase my spend, my profit margin decreases. So what I need to do is I need to make sure that when I'm at high scale, I can still make profit, right? Obviously, the amount of actual, money profit that you're making is still quite high because you're making $200,000 per month and you're making 10% profit margins. But the point is, we want to make more than 10% profit margins. Okay, so how do we actually do this? So here is essentially the overall workflow that I introduced with this brand. Okay, first of all, purchase is completed. They get an order confirmation, order fulfillment, and the thing gets shipped over. Okay, they receive the order. Typically, right at this point, most businesses will just ignore. Okay, and actually there is an extra step that we can include here, which I'll come back to, but most people will ignore that customer once they've purchased. Maybe at some point in between, like here, we will have a sort of upsell. Okay, and an upsell is basically saying, well, that customer is buying this product, and now they've just paid, would they like to spend a little bit more money on our store, right? Alternatively, you can do a or an in-cart, here we go, in-cart upsell. And in other words, the in-cart upsell is designed to ask that person, do they want to add like an extra $20 to their order and get a discount on the product that's very, very similar. Same thing goes for the post-purchase upsell. And this will increase your average order value, but this isn't necessarily lifetime value. This isn't getting them to come back and purchase. So here's what I usually do when I work with a brand, right? And this is the stuff that I'm going to go through in the free training. It gets a lot more complicated than this, but basically, right, quality check and customer satisfaction survey, right? And you can do this in multiple ways. In other ways, I like to actually set this up in an automated way, okay? Automated. Okay, so you can kind of allow this to go directly to the customer. So you actually send this survey to them, or you basically gather information from that customer. Okay, you get feedback from that customer depending on like the emails that they send, the reviews, and all of that stuff. Okay, so we kind of go through a decision tree process here, and you can set this up in whichever way you want. You can have customer support reps do this. When they email a customer, they say, look, are you happy? Yes or no. If not, go through this workflow. If they're happy, then fine, leave it, right? But basically, this is the workflow. Is the customer satisfied? Yes. Well, thank you, whatever, right? We'll come to that in a second. If they're not satisfied, we need to send up a customer service inquiry, okay? Why are they not satisfied, okay? Then also, how can we resolve that issue? Now, we know, right, we have spent to acquire that customer, our CPA has been, I don't know, let's say like $50, okay, to get that customer. But don't forget, right, the revenue that we've generated from that customer, and also we've sent that product out to that customer, right? So we've got multiple costs aligned with this customer. So we want to make sure that we resolve this issue, whether it means that we refund them and then we get them to come back, or we give them a discount code to actually come and buy another product, or we give them a voucher, whatever it is, we need to make sure that we retain that revenue because we have sunk cost into this customer. CPA of $50, cost, or we'll just put this as product cost, maybe that's like $20 or whatever your product and shipping cost is. So we are like $70 in the red for this customer, okay? So we need to make sure that we resolve this issue for this customer. And you can do this in multiple ways. Most people have some basic, really, really slow email support system where customers can email in. Then you have like multiple support reps. Each one of those support reps will deal with these tickets, deal with these customer questions, and then somehow prioritize and categorize these things. The only trouble with this system here, and I'm kind of going to go through this in a lot more detail on the live training, but the only problem with this system is you don't really know what is the most common issue, right? So you got customer service inquiries, right? It could be, for example, right? It could be broken products, okay? Right? It could be slow delivery, okay? It could be wrong order, okay? Whatever the problem is, you need to know exactly what those problems are, because that way, as a business, right, when you're scaling your revenue, you need to know exactly what's causing you to lose money, okay? And if you don't know what's letting you that's losing you money, what's going to happen is this, right? So over time, you are scaling your brand, you are increasing the amount of revenue that you're generating, but also the worst part about this is the number of disputes or the number of refunds or the number of problems in your business are also scaling up as well. And what happens is it gets like a threshold level, like here, for example. And at this point, right, it'll reach this level and you will have absolutely no idea why this is happening. But at this point, this is now actually causing you a significant loss. Okay, maybe, right, your profit has gone from a 10% down to like an 8% profit, or a 15% down to a 13% profit. Because what's happening is you are losing a lot of revenue for each of your customers, but you don't know why this is happening. But anyway, that's sort of getting slightly sidetracked. The point of this video is to say, look, if we can give our customers a good experience, we can resolve these issues. Let's just put this in here, right, quickly. If we can resolve these issues quickly, those customers are going to be much happier, right? So we're going to send a follow-up survey. Is the customer satisfied? Yes or no? Right. Okay. No, escalate to higher support, right? This here is in what I do, human escalation, okay? Escalation, right? And you can have this in different tiers. So you can have, for example, like a base tier human support, okay? And the base tier human support is going to be, let's just do this, right? Base tier human support is going to be like a VA, okay? Someone like that who is basically just going to, this is a virtual assistant, okay? I'll leave it as virtual ass. The point is this person isn't able to do a huge amount of stuff to actually solve the customer's problems. Okay, and then above that, either, and depends on how big your business is, if your business, for example, is large enough, then you'll have like multiple people in between, right? And these people will have different jobs, and then you will basically hand that support up. But for the most cases, you are the next person up on that ladder, okay? So you will be the person that deals with these problems, okay? And these are the things that really destroy your business. Now, there is a way of you making sure that this bottom step here, you actually replace this with an AI, okay, and you replace you with a virtual assistant. So in other words, you are now gradually removing yourself from the business. So an AI is able to handle all of this stuff here. So I'm just going to remove all of this, right? An AI is going to basically take over all of these things here. Put that, right? This would be an AI, okay? But yeah, obviously then if that customer is satisfied, we then send them a thank you message and there's a loyalty program offer. The loyalty program is what allows us to build, and this is the key, build brand loyalty. Okay, and in other words, when somebody buys from us and they're happy with us and we've dealt with their problem, we now basically, as soon as that's happened, we try and get them to come back and buy. We give them a discount. We get them to go ahead and share it on social media, give us a review, whatever it is that's going to help us grow our business, right? We then recollect feedback, and then we can sort of continue down this path, right? Return customer rate will increase as a result of this, right? The more time that you spend working with your customers, the more time that you spend dealing with the problems that your customers have, you will increase your return customer rate, you will increase your customer lifetime value, okay? And this enables us to spend more to acquire a customer, okay? So our CPA can be greater than our competitors. And that's basically just by increasing our lifetime value. We obviously still analyze this feedback. And this comes back to what I said earlier, right? Which is us trying to understand, I think I've rubbed it out now, right? Understand exactly what's causing the problems in our business, right? So in other words, right, what we want to make sure we're doing is when somebody has a problem, okay, and our customer support team is dealing with that problem, we need to make sure that we know what those problems are. So we, when I work with a business, right, when I basically set up these solutions, what we do is we categorize these. So we have, for example, like product issues, okay, or we'll have like order issue, okay, or we'll have tracking, or actually probably better is shipping, okay. So now, right, we can then analyze this and we can say, okay, out of our problems that we're having, right, 10% of them are product issues, 50% of them are order issues, and 40% of them are tracking issues. In other words, our product is good, right? There's not a lot that we need to do with our product. That's a lower priority, okay? We really need to focus on this one here. Right? This is the big problem, and this is the big problem. And The really cool thing about this is the more that you get the feedback, the more feedback that you get from people, the more you understand what the problems are in your business. You kind of go through a nice little sort of circular route of continually improving, right? As you get more customers, you will improve the problems with the orders, right? If the product breaks, or if you've got like a handmade product, whatever it is you're selling, you can improve that. Maybe you can improve the packaging. Maybe there's gift packaging. I don't know, whatever the problem is, right? Or shipping and tracking. If you can find ways of making customers, you don't have to necessarily make it quicker for somebody to get a product, but you can make them more aware, right? You can make them more aware that that product is going to arrive late, okay? And awareness is obviously key. So that is like an overview of how we typically start to build a brand $200,000 per month, okay? Now, there's a lot that you need to have set up underneath your brand, right? This is basically, I like to call this stuff, let's just get rid of this, we want this to be white, okay? This is like foundations, right? This is the stuff that you need to have in place before you start scaling. If you're trying to scale your brand and you haven't got this stuff in place, you're going to find that as you scale, your ROAS is going to drop. And as your ROAS drops, there's nothing that you can do about it, which means you end up hitting that cap, okay? And as you hit that cap, you're only able to scale to like $100 or maybe $1,000 per day, but you can't scale past that point. So hopefully this video was helpful. Guys, like I say, I am doing a free live training. In that free live training, I'm going to show you exactly how I managed to build sustainable e-commerce brands, long-term brands with loyal audiences that keep coming back and purchasing. Now, if you sign up and register to that free training, the link is down below, and you can also find it in the cards up here. If you sign up to that free training, you will also receive a free 9-lesson course, and there's a lot of useful information in there as well. Anyway, hopefully that was useful. Bye.